Hola! How you doing? Yogi here again. This is the 6th video in a series of 7 looking at ratios. In my last 3 videos, which have all had a similar theme, I have explained how unit ratios, scale ratios, and regular ratios can all be used to calculate one amount given another amount. In this video, I want to look at a different concept, that of sharing an amount in a given ratio. Think along the lines of sharing a box of chocolates with another person, or sharing lottery winnings. This would be an easy concept if things were shared equally, 50-50 as they say. But there are many situations where amounts are not shared equally. Let's look at an example of where we could use ratios to share an amount. In this example, Alice, Shayna, and Eva want to share $96 they won in a raffle in the ratio 4:3:1. How much money should each person receive? Take a moment to try and work this out for yourself. Where would you start? Pause the video here. There are many ways you could go about trying to answer this question. I'm going to go over a couple of methods for you to think about. Alice, Shayna, and Eva will want to split the money. Alice should get a part of the money, Shayna should get a part of the money, and Eva should get a part of the money. If they were sharing the money equally, it would be fairly straightforward to work out how much each person gets. They would be sharing in thirds, so we could divide the $96 by 3 and we could find out how much each person gets. However, in this question, they are not sharing equally. They're sharing in a ratio of 4:3:1. If we could just find out how much Eva got, then we would know that Shayna would be getting 3 times as much as Eva, and Alice would be getting 4 times as much as Eva. Unfortunately, we don't know how much Eva is getting. As in previous videos, when we don't know a number, we might call it X. So let's call the amount that Eva gets X dollars. In that case, Shayna should get 3 times as much, so she should get 3X dollars. And Alice should get 4 times as much as Eva, so she should get 4 times X dollars, which is 4X dollars. But we know that all the amounts must add up to $96. In other words, the X dollars that Eva gets, added to the 3X dollars that Shayna gets, added to the 4X dollars that Alice gets, should add up to $96. Now, from your work on algebra, we know that x plus 3x plus 4x is 8x. So 8x should equal $96. If we divide both sides by 8, we'll find that x is equal to $12. Do you remember what x was? X was the amount that Eva gets. So x is $12. That means Eva is getting $12 out of the $96. However, Shayna is meant to get 3 times as much as Eva. So 3 times 12 is 36. And finally, Alice gets 4 times as much as Eva, so 4 times 12 is 48. You should always check that this answer makes sense. So as a final check, if we add up the amounts of $12 that Eva should get, $36 that Shayna should get, and $48 that Alice should get, we do see that it does add up to $96, so the answer makes sense. To summarize this method, the first thing we want to do is calculate the number of parts. And the way we can do that is by actually adding up the numbers in the ratio. So 4 plus 3 plus 1 equals 8. Next, we should divide the size of the amount to be shared by that number 8. What will this tell us? This will tell us the size of one part. So 1 part out of 8 is worth $12. And remember, Eva was going to get 1 part out of 8. From there, we can calculate how much each person gets by multiplying each number in the ratio by the size of one part. So the first number in the ratio is 4, and the size of one part is $12, so 4 times 12 is 48. The second number in the ratio was 3. 3 times the size of one part, which was $12, is 3 times 12, which is 36. And finally, Eva's share, which is just one part, is going to be $12. And then finally, you should always check that the amounts add up to the original amount. In this method that I've just shown you, the key idea was to find out the size of one part. However, another way of solving the question is to find fractions. I'll explain that now. If Eva got $1, then according to the ratio 4:3:1, Shayna should get $3, 3 times as much, and Alice should get $4, 4 times as much. This is a total of $8. So out of a total of $8, Eva should be getting 1/8. Shayna would get 3 out of $8, and Alice would get 4 out of $8. This was based on sharing $8. However, we know in the question that they want to share $96. Now this $96 will be still shared in that same proportion. So Eva should still get 1/8 of the $96, which in this case would be $12. Shayna should get 3/8 of whatever the amount is. So 3/8 of 96 is $36. And Alice will get 4/8, $4 out of every 8 of the $96, which will then be $48. Once again, as a final check, you should always add up the amounts that have been shared to make sure they add up to the original amount. So $12 plus the $36 plus the $48 will still add up to $96. To summarize this method, we start by adding the numbers in the ratio to calculate the number of parts, which is what we did in the previous method. However, the next step is to express each part as a fraction by using the part as the numerator and the total number of parts as the denominator. So for example, Alice was getting 4 parts and the total number of parts is 8. So that's a fraction of 4/8. We then end up with these 3 fractions: 4/8 for Alice, 3/8 for Shayna, and 1/8, 1 part out of 8, for Eva. If we then multiply each of these fractions by the amount to be shared, we will find out how much money each person gets. So 4/8 times the total amount to be shared gives us $48. 3/8 times the total amount gives us $36, and 1/8 times the total amount gives us $12. And as I said earlier, we want to make sure that these amounts actually do add up to 96, and so if we add 48 plus 36 plus 12, we get $96, the same answer as in the previous method. Okay, so that's sharing an amount in a given ratio. We've seen that it's about dividing an amount into a number of parts. We've seen that there are a couple of different methods that you could use to try and solve these kind of questions, and it's up to you to choose which one you feel more comfortable with. Can you think of any situations where you might have to share something into a number of parts? It can happen when you least expect it, but at least now you'll be ready to know how to deal with it and share things in a ratio fairly. In the next video, RAT007, which is the last in this series on ratios, I'll talk about the idea of rates, where we compare 2 amounts that are different, and we'll see that this is subtly different to looking at ratios where we compare things that are the same. Until then, take care and adios.